This is a video about writing essays. The writing process consists of 5 stages: pre-writing, organizing, drafting and revising, editing, and proofreading. This video will focus on the organizing stage, which contains 3 elements. We will think about different methods of development for our essays, look at essay structure and consider in detail what each part of an essay, meaning the introduction, body, and conclusion, should contain. And finally, we will discuss how to create an essay plan. At this stage in the writing process, we should know the purpose of our essay, whether that purpose is to inform or to persuade, for example. Now we need to think about how we are going to develop our ideas in order to accomplish that purpose with our audience. How are we going to piece the explanations or arguments of the type of essay together to effectively influence or inform our reader? To do this, we should consider different methods of development. Methods of development describe how we process information. Your overall essay should follow a method of development, and each individual paragraph within should have a method of development also. There are 8 common methods of development. There is narration, which is used to tell a story or relate an event. There's description, which is used to present a person, place, or event. There's exemplification, which is used to clarify a point or a concept. There is definition, which is used to fully clarify meaning. There is process, which is used to explain how an event happens. There is classification division, which is used to divide large concept into constituent parts. There is comparison contrast, which is used to highlight similarities and differences. And finally, there is cause effect, which is used to explain the reason behind events. Often, the pattern of development is defined by the essay question. However, this is not always the case. In order to identify an appropriate organization for your essay, we can look back to the exploratory questions we discussed in the pre-writing section. If, in the pre-writing sections, you answered the questions, what happened, when did it happen, where did it happen, and to whom did it happen, in detail, you have the basis of a narration. If you answered the questions, how is it like other things, and how is it different from other things, with detail, a comparison-contrast method of development seems applicable. Again, although your essay might follow a comparison-contrast method overall, a body paragraph may, for example, use a definition method of development to clarify a required concept that is integral to your comparison-contrast. So you should consider these questions and methods not only for the overall essay, but also for each individual paragraph. If you are working on an essay now, you could pause the video and take time to consider your pre-writing ideas and to identify appropriate methods of development for your essay and for your individual paragraphs. The consideration of methods of development leads into the topic of transitions, which we will discuss later in this video. Whatever methods of development apply to your essay, the overall essay structure remains the same. You still need to create an essay with an introduction, body paragraphs, and a conclusion. We introduced the thesis and support structure of academic essays in the video on pre-writing. But to recap, the thesis statement is the statement around which your entire essay is organized. Your introduction contains your thesis statement. Each body paragraph develops an idea related to your thesis statement, and your conclusion reinforces the thesis statement before providing closure. We will now look at each part of the essay in detail. The first part of your essay is the introduction. It usually consists of one paragraph, and it must accomplish two things. It must, of course, tell your audience what your essay is about, and it must also grab your audience's attention. It must make them want to continue reading your essay. First, tell the audience what the essay is about. This is achieved by writing an effective thesis statement, which should concisely express the essay's main idea, relate the essay's purpose, and be clearly worded. A well-crafted thesis statement also indicates the essay's overall structure. For more information about thesis statements, you could watch our video on pre-writing. Structurally, a thesis statement should be placed at the beginning or end of your introduction. Readers pay most attention to things at the beginning or end, and less attention to things in the middle of paragraphs. So to avoid losing a thesis statement's impact, place it first or last. Now, grabbing your audience's attention. This can be accomplished in many ways. For example, you could open your essay with a declarative statement, which means opening with your thesis statement. You could provide historical or social context, a definition, an anecdote, a quotation, a surprising fact or statistic, or a question. As mentioned when we discussed how to tell the audience what the essay is about, you could place your thesis statement as the opening line of your essay, which is a way of opening with a declarative statement. This works best with controversial topics or unexpected arguments. It also works well with strong thesis statements, meaning that the statement is well constructed and creates a strong impression on the reader. It is also a good approach if you have limited time, meaning you are writing a timed essay as part of a test. Here is an example thesis statement to open an essay on death and early colonial identity. The inexplicably high death rate in early colonial North America added to the European settlers' sense of fear, pushing the leaders to adopt stringent laws and fueling a growing belief in the occult. This thesis attempts to draw interest through using dramatic language, for example, push, fuel, and the occult, to show the effects of fear in the early colonial period. As a side note, this thesis also indicates a cause-effect method of development for the essay and provides direction to the body paragraphs. A second option is to open with information about the historical or social context. This works well if the audience is already engaged in what you are writing about. This means you can get straight to the point. It is also another good approach if you have limited time. And finally, it is a good approach if the context you provide helps the audience to understand your essay more deeply. For example, you could use it to contextualize your argument within a broader subject area. Here is an example from an essay on loneliness and dreams in Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men. With the extensive effects of the Great Depression and Dust Bowl as the backdrop, Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men depicts a period of loneliness and futility. This opening reminds the reader of context that is imperative to understanding the characters' situations in the novella, and it also sets an appropriate tone for an essay that deals with this topic. A third option is to begin with a definition. A word of warning, however. Like a best man speech at a wedding, it is best to avoid a definition straight out of the Merriam-Webster's or Oxford English dictionaries, as this is rather cliché. This approach is best used if your paper requires a clear definition of specialized or contested language, or a difficult or controversial concept that is central to the paper's main idea. And you should also create an original definition which must be applied consistently throughout the entire paper. Here is an example from an essay on the American Dream. The American dream is the notion that, if they are willing to work hard, anyone from anywhere can enjoy a life of liberty and prosperity in the United States of America. This works because people may have different notions, perhaps narrower or broader, of the American dream. This opening clearly defines the American dream as it is used in this paper. This defines the scope of the term, therefore clearing up any misunderstandings before they happen. Another option would be to begin with an anecdote, a short personal story that is either interesting or humorous. This works best if your anecdote is directly linked to your thesis statement, and you want to achieve a personal connection with your audience. This means that it suits papers with a more personal and less formal tone. It would be unusual to find an anecdote at the beginning of a formal report or technical paper. But such an opening could be effective with a more personal assignment, such as a biographical essay about someone you know. Here is an example from an essay on identity and belonging. As a teenager, I had a roommate from Ireland. We were good friends, but whenever he could spend time with his friends from Ireland rather than me, he would. They were Irish, so why would he spend time with an Englishman? This opening is a personal experience that raises interesting questions about identity and belonging. The essay can then go on to explore positive and negative elements. You could also begin with a quotation. You can use quotations from a variety of sources, from philosophers to gossip columnists. Of course, always considering the assignment and the audience. Another word of warning. Try to avoid clichés and don't use well-worn expressions or metaphors in this opening quotation. Again, this is best used if the quotation directly relates to your thesis statement and the quotation creates interest in what follows. Here is an example on the topic of Puritan New England. Times are bad, God is good, Puritan theologian Richard Sibbes claimed. The quotation sums up the Puritan beliefs of the time and the antithesis, the contrast created by good and bad, within the concise quote is effective in drawing the reader into the essay. You could also use a surprising fact or statement as an attention-grabbing opening. Of course, a surprise is attention-grabbing, but make sure that you consider your audience before choosing this option. This approach can be useful if you want to elicit a response from your audience. Perhaps your essay contains a call to action. This example is taken from an essay on Fahrenheit 451 and censorship. It only took Ray Bradbury a little over 1 week to write a novel that has captured the imagination of its readers for more than 60 years. The surprising element is that such a successful book could be written in such a short period of time. Although an impressive feat, this is not a dramatic, surprising opening. However, its success is that it encourages the reader to ponder why the book is still relevant today. Why do people continue to read a book about censorship that was written more than 60 years ago? The final approach is to begin with a question. Again, this should be used carefully as it's a technique that has been used a lot. To be successful, the quotation should be thought-provoking and pertinent to the essay's main point. This example is taken from an essay on high death rate in the early North American colonial period. With such limited knowledge, how could the Pilgrims explain why 50 out of 102 passengers aboard the Mayflower had died by the spring of 1621? The question puts the reader somewhat in the Pilgrim's position. How would you account for such a high death rate with no knowledge of the germs and diseases? It encourages the reader to empathise with some of the decisions made by the leaders and to understand some of the outlandish beliefs held by many of the early settlers. In summary, an effective essay introduces the topic of the essay through its thesis statement, and it grabs the reader's attention, making them want to continue reading. Following the introduction, you need to create several body paragraphs. The paragraphs must be centered around one claim, topic, or idea in the thesis statement. A good paragraph is unified, well-developed, and coherent. The tech structure helps to achieve a unified and well-developed paragraph. Tech stands for topic sentence, evidence, commentary, and concluding sentence. We will talk about each element in turn and then discuss coherence. First, topic sentences, which help in the pursuit of unity. A topic sentence must relate directly to the thesis statement. It must introduce the entire topic of the paragraph, but nothing that is not discussed in the paragraph. This helps to achieve unity, as every sentence must relate directly to the topic sentence. If anything within the paragraph does not relate to the topic sentence, it should be moved or deleted. A topic sentence must also contain a controlling idea that tells the reader the scope and the direction of the paragraph. It tells the reader what you are going to say about the topic. For example, will the paragraph provide a list of factors relating to the topic? Finally, the topic sentence should have a logical and smooth connection to the previous paragraph. We will discuss transitions later, which will help with this. The example topic sentence here has the topic of the Mayflower Compact and foundational documents, and a controlling idea of several governing principles. This tells the reader that the paragraph will list some similarities between the Mayflower Compact and later documents. An implied method of development would be comparison-contrast. Next, we have the evidence, which, along with commentary, helps to ensure that the paragraph is well developed. The evidence must help to explain or develop the topic sentence. There are many types of evidence, for example, expert opinion, testimony, experiments, facts, statistics, visuals, including charts and tables. There are also examples, reasons, detail, illustration, anecdote, analogy, personal observation, and personal experience. You need to choose the type of evidence that best suits the type of paper, your purpose, and your audience. In less formal papers, for instance, personal observations and experiences may be suitable, but in a more formal research paper, perhaps they are not. It is a case of considering your options and choosing what you believe to be the most effective evidence to achieve your purpose. As part of the evidence element of a paragraph, you often need to include a signal phrase. A signal phrase indicates that you will change from your ideas into the ideas of another. A signal phrase is most commonly used before quotations and paraphrases, but could also precede other types of evidence, such as a statistic. In our example, the signal phrase is highlighted. The Mayflower Compact declares. A comma is placed following the signal phrase, and then quotation marks are used to surround the quoted text. Following the evidence is an in-text citation. We will cover MLA referencing and formatting in our video on proofreading, but of course, you should directly consult the style guide that you are using for your essay. When writing a signal phrase, you should also try to use strong verbs. Avoid using neutral verbs such as say, write, or state. Instead, use verbs that indicate how or why it was stated. For example, acknowledge, argue, coalition, caution, claim, clarify, emphasize, exemplify, explain, inform, imply, and warn. These verbs all indicate the tone, style, purpose of the evidence, and also enhance the impact of your writing. Following evidence, we need to provide commentary. Again, this helps to achieve a well-developed paragraph. Commentary is your explanation or analysis of how the evidence supports your topic sentence and overall thesis. Avoid simply repeating the evidence. Try to build upon, expand, and develop it. Here are some questions that can help you to achieve this. Why did I use this piece of evidence? How does this evidence help to support my topic sentence and my overall thesis? The final element of the body paragraph is the concluding sentence. A concluding sentence wraps up the point made in the paragraph and links to the next paragraph. Again, some questions can help you to write your concluding sentence. For example, does this sentence provide closure for the paragraph? How does this sentence connect to the next paragraph? Coherence, which means the smooth and logical flow of ideas, is the final aspect to discuss in relation to body paragraphs. Of course, coherence is important for the flow between paragraphs as well as within paragraphs. Some strategies to help with coherence are the repetition of keywords, the use of pronouns, and the use of transitional words and phrases. We will now discuss each in turn. The repetition of keywords through multiple sentences of the paragraph helps to keep a paragraph focused and coherent. You can also use variants of the word, for example when it is used as a different part of speech. Or you can use the keywords synonyms. To successfully use keywords to achieve coherence, you can underline the topic and highlight the controlling idea contained in the topic sentence. In our example, you can see the American dream is the topic and inaccessible to many is the controlling idea. Next, you can select the keyword or words to be repeated throughout the paragraph. In the example, a keyword would be inaccessible. Finally, you can identify variants and synonyms of the keyword. Here, I have identified inaccessibility as a variant and unachievable, unreachable, and beyond reach as synonyms. The second technique is to use pronouns. Pronouns usually refer to antecedents in the same sentence or a previous sentence. An antecedent is the noun that the pronoun replaces. An approach to using pronouns would be to first highlight the key nouns in the topic sentence. In our example, the key noun is the American dream. Then, you can identify the pronouns that can be used to refer to the noun throughout the paragraph. Here, it would be it as a personal pronoun in both the subjective and objective case, and it would be its in the possessive case. The final consideration is the use of transitional words and phrases. These are used to show the relationship between different ideas in your paragraph. You can use transitions to add information or sequence events, such as also, first, furthermore, and so on. You can use transitions to show time, such as before and during. And other transitions are used to show examples, to emphasize, to compare, to contrast, to show cause and effect, and to summarize. Transitions guide your reader through your paper. There should be some correlation between your method of development and the transitions that you use. For example, if you are using a narration method of development, you will tend to use transitions to add information and sequence events, as well as some transitions to show time. If you are using a cause-effect method of development, you will mostly use transitions to add or sequence, to show cause and effect, and to emphasize. This is a guideline, and it does not mean that you will only use those types of transitions. But of course, your method of development should be apparent through your writing, and this is one way to make that so. Here is an example. First, we should identify the method of development indicated by our topic sentence. In our example, too many indicates that the paragraph will provide examples of who the American dream is inaccessible to. Then we can select appropriate transitions that are used to provide examples. We have, for example, for instance, in addition, and so on. To summarize our discussion of body paragraphs. Body paragraphs should be unified, well-developed, and coherent, and focused on one claim, topic, or idea. The text structure helps us to achieve a unified and well-developed paragraph. TEC stands for topic sentence, evidence, commentary, and concluding sentence. We can achieve coherence through the repetition of keywords, the use of pronouns, and the use of transitional devices. The final part of your essay is the conclusion. A conclusion needs to wrap up the essay. As previously mentioned, it must reinforce the thesis statement and purpose of the essay. There are several ways to achieve this. You may summarize the main ideas or restate the thesis. Make a recommendation for action. Include a call to action. Make a prediction, or end with a quotation. Some final words of warning. Don't repeat the exact words of your thesis or topic sentences. If you opt to summarize, use synonyms and try to show how your essay has developed the overall claim. Do not end with a cliché. Hackneyed expressions and generally accepted notions need to be avoided. Don't introduce new points. This is a final paragraph and no place to introduce a further point in the discussion that your essay will not address. Try to avoid simplistic transitions such as "in conclusion." Like the thesis statement, your conclusion should speak for itself and be able to stand alone. Use the tone of your writing to indicate that the paper is coming to an end. The final aspect of the organizing stage of the writing process is creating an essay plan. A plan helps you to keep your writing focused when you write your first draft. Begin with writing your thesis statement at the top of the page. Next, add topic sentences for each body paragraph. Remember that each body paragraph must develop an aspect of your thesis statement, so the topic sentence must reflect this. Then, identify at least one piece of evidence for each topic sentence. Now that you have the bones of an essay, you should be ready to begin the first draft. Always remember that you can alter the plan as you find new ideas or information. However, this outline helps to get the initial draft on paper before you refine your work. That concludes the discussion of the organizing stage of the writing process. We have looked at different methods of development. We have provided a detailed analysis of essay structure, and we have suggested elements to include in an essay plan. The next video in the series will move on to the drafting and revising stage, when you finally put all of your ideas down. We hope this video was useful, and thank you for watching.